tell yourself, it's not the right time yet, and you repeat this like a mantra, as if you are being prudent, strategic, rational. But the truth is much darker. You are not waiting for the right moment. You are waiting for guarantees. You want to feel ready, to be absolutely sure that everything will work out, that there will be no pain, failure, or regret. You expect the universe to send you a clear, unquestionable sign, as if the responsibility of choosing could be outsourced to a divine force. But this waiting is a farce, an escape, a self-deception carefully camouflaged as wisdom. Søren Kierkegaard, the father of existentialism, saw this happen long before you were born. He understood that the greatest prison has no bars. It has justifications. People say they are waiting for the ideal moment, but what truly paralyzes them is the terror of freedom. Because choosing means taking full responsibility for your life. It means giving up all other paths. It means accepting that from the moment you decide, there is no one else to blame. That anguish you feel is not a mistake. It is not weakness. It is a symptom that you are alive. Kierkegaard called this existential angst, and he said it arises precisely when we realize we are free. Free to act, free to err, free to fail. Freedom is not lightness. Freedom is a brutal burden. And that is why many prefer to remain trapped in the realm of infinite possibilities, where everything is possible, as long as nothing is done. You fantasize about idealized versions of your life. You plan meticulously. You say you are waiting for the right time. But that time never comes. And do you know why? Because it doesn't exist. The wait has become a disguise for fear, a ritual to avoid the pain of truly living. You think you are being rational, but you are just being cowardly. And Kierkegaard would say that without hesitation. He believed that this paralysis, this eternal waiting, is a form of sophisticated despair. It is the refusal to live, the denial disguised as logic. And here is the central point. No one is going to save you. There is no perfect time. There is no cosmic sign. There is no instruction manual. Life demands that you act even with a racing heart, even without certainty, even trembling. This is the true leap of faith, not religious, but existential. The act of choosing without guarantees, of walking even without seeing the ground. And if you do not take this leap, if you remain trapped in the limbo of hesitation, then you are already dead inside. You just forgot to fall. This video reached you for a reason, not as magic, but because deep down, you already know it's time to act. The restlessness that brought you here is the only sign that matters. The rest is noise. Now you have two choices: continue deceiving yourself or finally wake up. You believe you are free because you have options. But Kierkegaard shows us a disconcerting truth. This apparent freedom may be precisely the prison that keeps you paralyzed. You feel powerful when you imagine all the lives you could live, the ideal job, the perfect relationship, the highest version of yourself. And while you dream, you feel like you are in motion. But all of this is an illusion. Nothing is really happening. Outside your head, your life remains still, suspended in an elegant and silent void. This state, where everything seems possible but nothing is actually realized, is what Kierkegaard called the aesthetic mode of existence. It is the mode of the eternal dreamer, the compulsive planner, the visionary who never commits. You say you are waiting for the best moment, the alignment of the stars, the right sign. But what you are really doing is hiding behind possibility. You prefer the fantasy of choice to the pain of action. Because acting requires cutting. It requires saying no to thousands of other paths, and that hurts. The truth is that you have been seduced by the idea of freedom without sacrifice. In a culture that glorifies infinite possibilities, renunciation feels like betrayal. Giving something up has become synonymous with failure. So you stay on the edge, collecting plans, feeding expectations, but never crossing the threshold of reality. You keep your life in draft mode, afraid to hit publish. But Kierkegaard was straightforward. A life of infinite potential without concrete action is as useless as a wasted life. This paralysis is not laziness. It is existential anguish, the deep discomfort of knowing that you are free to choose. But with that freedom comes an unbearable responsibility. Because once you choose, you have no more excuses. Guilt, failure, regret. Everything will be yours. And you hide that well. You tell others you are thinking, planning, waiting. You post beautiful quotes about patience and purpose. But deep down, you know you are hiding. Because choosing is scary. Because choosing ends the fantasy. It turns the dream into something real, imperfect, risky, flawed. And that is where true suffering begins. Because the longer you delay, the more the dream decomposes. What once motivated you starts to haunt you. You see time passing, you see people going, trying, failing, living, and you stay, waiting. Kierkegaard was relentless about this. For him, those who live eternally in possibility are not dreamers, they are cowards dressed in poetry. And the price of this cowardice is the silent deterioration of the soul. The anguish grows, frustration settles in, and regret becomes inevitable. If you feel a constant restlessness, if a subtle anxiety accompanies you every day, that is not a flaw. That is unlived life, accumulated potential, trapped energy. And it will eat away at you until you do something with it. But why is it so hard to act? Why does freedom, which should be a gift, make us sick? The answer lies at the heart of existential psychology, the nature of anguish itself. And that is what we will talk about next. Because to understand your paralysis, you need to face head-on the burden of being free. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Most people believe they are afraid of failure, but Kierkegaard reveals something much deeper and more disturbing. What truly terrifies us is not failing, it is being free. Freedom, contrary to what cheap motivational discourse tries to sell, is not lightness, it is not joy. It is not the absence of limits. Freedom is anguish. An anguish that arises the moment we realize that we are the only ones responsible for our lives. Kierkegaard asserts that anguish is the vertex of freedom. It appears when we become aware that we can choose, and that each choice, no matter how small, carries the weight of renouncing all the others. You can follow any path, but from the moment you choose one, all the others die. This symbolic death of the other possible selves is what silently tears your soul apart. It is what binds you, even when everything around you says you are free. Anguish, therefore, is not something external. It does not come from the world, it comes from within, from the internal freedom that confronts you with the fact that there is no one else to decide in your place. Neither God, nor fate, nor your parents, nor society. It is you. It always has been, and it always will be. And this radical solitude of decision terrifies you, because in choosing, you lose the comfort of others' guilt. You lose the alibi. And that is unbearable for many. The paradox is cruel. You want to be free, but you do not want the weight of freedom. You want the possibilities, but not the responsibility. And then anguish arises. This faceless feeling, this tightness in your chest, this restlessness that you try to medicate, distract, or ignore. But it does not go away, because it is not a mistake. It is the price of consciousness. Kierkegaard saw anguish as a breaking point, a threshold between inauthentic existence, where you live as others expect, and authentic existence, where you act from yourself, even without guarantees. And here is the key. Anguish should not be avoided, but traversed. It is the birth of freedom. Without it, you remain a shadow of yourself, a reflection of the world, someone who lives by proxy. But traversing anguish requires courage, not the courage to not feel fear, that is foolishness, but the courage to act despite the fear, to take the first step, even while trembling, to recognize that the discomfort you feel is not a sign that you are on the wrong path, but rather that you are stepping out of the dead zone of passivity. And that is the turning point, the choice. Will you continue trying to anesthetize your freedom with distractions and excuses? Or will you finally accept the burden it brings? In the next section, we will expose the lie that sustains your paralysis, the waiting for guarantees. Because you are not waiting for time, money, or clarity. You are waiting for a certainty that will never come. And the more you wait, the more you surrender your life to disguised despair. You tell yourself that you are waiting for the right moment, that it's not time to act yet, that you need more clarity, more stability, more signs, but Kierkegaard ruthlessly tears off that mask. What you are really waiting for is not time. It's assurance. Assurance that it will work out, that it won't hurt, that you won't make a mistake, that you won't regret it, that you won't be judged, rejected, or humiliated. You want absolute security before acting. You want uncertainties to disappear, risks to evaporate, for someone to give you a divine stamp saying, "Go, now it's safe." But that will never happen. And the longer you wait for this illusion, the more you feed a sophisticated kind of despair, one that dresses itself in logic, disguises itself as maturity, but is, at its core, a paralyzing fear of living. Kierkegaard observed that this waiting is not passivity. It is an active decision not to decide. And that is even more dangerous because it seems sensible. You say you are just being responsible, but what you are doing is fleeing from the deepest responsibility of all, the responsibility to choose without guarantees. The truth is that life will never offer you certainty. You will never have all the information. You will never know with absolute certainty if you are making the right choice. Because there is no right choice, there is only the choice you make and the consequences that come with it, good or bad, glorious or painful. The desire for guarantees is, in fact, the childish desire for someone to make the decision for you, so that you can live without carrying the weight of the outcome. But the adult reality, the reality of authentic existence, is brutal. Every decision is a leap into the dark. No matter how much you plan, calculate, organize, in the end, there will always be risk. There will always be doubt. There will always be a chance of making a mistake. And that is what makes life real. It is what gives value to action. If there were guarantees, there would be no merit. There would be no courage. There would be no freedom. And here is the cruelest point. The more you wait for guarantees, the further you get from life. Because living, in fact, requires you to expose yourself, to try, to fail, to face the consequences. Waiting for a divine sign is, in fact, a way of asking God to spare you from the pain of being human. But Kierkegaard was clear. This waiting is a refusal to live. It is a suspended, frozen, anesthetized life, an existence without blood, without error, without authenticity. What you are calling patience may be cowardice. What you are calling preparation may be escape. You want a path where there is no loss. But that path does not exist, and the more you insist on searching for it, the more time you waste. So tell me, what hurts more? The fear of trying, or the regret of never having tried? In the next part, we will explore the only possible response to this reality, what Kierkegaard called the leap of faith. And be warned, this leap has nothing to do with religion. It is something much more challenging. The act of acting without guarantees, relying only on your own responsibility to live. If you have made it this far, you may already be on the edge of the abyss. The question is, Will you jump? If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. The leap of faith is one of the most misunderstood concepts of Søren Kierkegaard. Many associate it with a religious leap, a blind surrender to God, a rational renunciation in the name of dogmatic faith. But Kierkegaard was talking about something much deeper and infinitely more frightening. The leap of faith he proposes is existential, not theological. It is the act of choosing one's own life, even in the face of total uncertainty. It is jumping when there is no ground, no safety net, no guarantees. It is trusting not in God, but in oneself, in one's own responsibility, in one's own choice, in one's own courage to exist. Make no mistake, Kierkegaard understood that the modern human is a being in flight. Flight from silence, from pain, from responsibility, and above all, from one's own freedom. But there comes a moment when the pain of continuing to flee becomes greater than the fear of facing. And that is where the leap is born, not as an impulsive act, but as an act of brutal lucidity. The leap of faith is the decision to live authentically, even knowing that you might fail. It is the abandonment of the search for absolute certainties and the beginning of the real creation of one's own existence. This leap does not happen with epic music in the background, nor with a divine revelation illuminating the path. It is silent, solitary, made in the dark of dawn, when you are face to face with the emptiness of your own soul. When you realize that if you do not act now, you will continue spinning in the same cycle of anguish, dissatisfaction, and endless waiting. Kierkegaard knew that those who leap are not those who feel less fear. It is those who accept fear as part of the journey. Those who understand that living is a risk that will never be eliminated. Those who realize that the only possible certainty is this: if I do nothing, nothing will change. The leap is the mature response to anguish. It is the moment when you say, I choose, even if I do not know what will happen, and do not be fooled. Those who leap also stumble. They also fail. They also cry. But there is something that these people have that others will never have. The peace of knowing that they tried, that they did not hide from life, that they did not pass through existence as cautious spectators, but as imperfect protagonists. The leap of faith is the dividing line between a life that is lived and a life that is merely endured. And if you feel that you are at the limit, that something inside you is asking for change, it is no coincidence. This inner calling, this restlessness that grows in silence, is the beginning of the leap. You do not need to be prepared. You need to be willing. But what if you do not leap? What happens when you choose to remain still, waiting for certainties that never come? Kierkegaard also gives us that answer. And it is harsh, because it reveals what many live without realizing: a death disguised as life. In the next part, we will face this uncomfortable truth head-on. Because continuing to postpone action does not keep you safe. It condemns you to emptiness. And this emptiness has a name: despair. Few things are as cruel as a life that is never lived. Not because opportunities were lacking, but because fear always spoke louder. Kierkegaard was not afraid to name this state: despair, and not the dramatic despair, with tears and screams, but a more dangerous despair, the silent one, the one that hides beneath routines, empty goals, and elaborate justifications. The despair of those who still breathe, but have long since stopped truly living. When you refuse to choose, you are not remaining neutral. You are choosing not to live. You are opting for an existence without depth, without risk, without authenticity. With each day you postpone action, decision, the leap. You are burying yourself a little deeper in the grave of inertia. And the worst part, convinced that you are being sensible. Kierkegaard saw this with terrifying clarity. For him, the greatest danger in life was not error, failure, or even pain. It was stagnation, the freezing of the soul, living trapped in what he called infinite possibility, where everything can be done, but nothing is done, is to live in a kind of existential purgatory. Neither heaven nor hell, neither joy nor true pain, just a continuous numbness where the only thing that grows is regret. And this regret, contrary to what you think, does not come at the end of life. It is already there, in the irritation you feel when you see others trying, in the frustration that appears every time a new week begins and everything remains the same, in the silent shame of knowing that you could be somewhere else, mentally, emotionally, or physically, but chose the safety of stagnation. Time does not stop, and the time you waste does not return as a new chance. It returns in the form of bitterness. You will begin to notice that the dreams you did not fulfill start to turn into chronic pains. You will become cynical, sarcastic, cold. You will mock those who still believe, because deep down you hate the fact that you have stopped believing in yourself. The non-choice is a choice, and it has a very high cost: death in life. You become a secondary character in your own story, someone who merely reacts, survives, repeats, someone who rationalizes their own apathy with cliches, with bar philosophies, with self-sabotage disguised as prudence. But there is a breaking point, a moment when the pain of remaining still becomes greater than the fear of moving, when boredom ceases to be uncomfortable and becomes unbearable, when you realize that there is nothing more dangerous than staying in the same place for too long. And perhaps that moment is now. In the next and final part, we will confront this truth with the urgency it deserves. Because if you are waiting for a sign, this is the sign. Not one coming from the sky, but the one that screams inside you. The restlessness, the discomfort, the silent anger of being stuck. It is time to do something about it, to act, to live, because time is passing, and so are you. If you are still here, reading or listening to these words, it's because something inside you already knows. Something in you is tired, not of the world, but of yourself. Tired of hiding behind caution, endless preparation, the illusion that tomorrow you will be more ready. You won't. Tomorrow you will be older, with more doubts, more hesitations, more scars accumulated from everything you didn't have the courage to try. And you know what's worse? Even if you try to ignore this restlessness, it won't go away. It will grow. It will wake you up in the middle of the night. It will make you feel out of place, frustrated, empty, even when everything around you seems okay. Because you weren't born to live a lukewarm life, and you know that. Kierkegaard said that the door to happiness opens inward. This means it's no use waiting for the world to change, for conditions to improve, for someone to come and rescue you. The movement has to start within you. You are the door, and you are locking yourself in. So now, you have two choices before you. Keep waiting for a sign that will never come, or recognize that this moment is the sign, that this restlessness pulsing inside you, this tension growing by the minute, is the only warning that matters. You don't need another video, another book, another opinion. What you need is an act, a step, a gesture, a break from everything that keeps you frozen. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, you might fail. But what you are living now, this paralysis that consumes you in silence, is already a form of pain. A pain without transformation. A sterile pain. And between the pain of failure and the pain of never having tried, Only one of them transforms you. Only one of them makes you more alive. So go. Make the call. Move to another city. End what dims your light. Start what scares you. You will stumble. You will want to turn back. But at least you will be alive. At least you will be in motion. At least you will be honoring the brutal, heavy, and sacred gift of being a free human being. Now, before you go, pause for a moment, breathe, and look within. If these words confronted you, hurt you, or woke you up, write in the comments, "I stopped waiting." This is more than a comment. It's a commitment. A pact with your version that no longer accepts living in wait mode. And if this video touched you, shook you, made you face truths you've been avoiding, then subscribe. Not just to support the channel, but to remind yourself to keep waking up. To keep coming out of anesthesia. This is a space for those who have the courage to look within and act. The time is now, and there's nothing more to wait for.